Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Joe, for coming as well today. Nice to see everybody, some of the repeat viewers, as well as some of the new people on this call. So as Isabel said, please send your questions. We look forward to answering them at the end. So today we're going to really dive into LiveView and the Morningstar Mobile app. What are the similarities? What are the differences? When, why, and how to use them. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So, what is LiveView? LiveView is the application that's served out of our smart devices, whether that's a ReadyEdge or a GenStar, and you connect to LiveView through Ethernet or your local LAN network. And then the Morningstar Mobile app is an app that you download onto your phone and you connect to our smart devices via Bluetooth specifically. So let's look at what that means in a bit more detail here. So, with LiveView, you're going to use that on site for local access. You're going to connect to LiveView that's served inside of our devices through your local network. So specifically, plug in the Ethernet cable into your computer and you're good to go. You use LiveView for configuring, commissioning, and control of your system. And you can also view your system status and real-time data on the spot. You can also download data and update firmware. So with the Morningstar mobile app, at this point, now this will change. It does a lot of the same things, but it doesn't have a detailed charging setup. So we'll talk more about that as we go along. But you access the app and the device via Bluetooth on your phone, and so you do that on site locally as well. And you can also view your status in real-time data. The Morningstar mobile app does have all of the networking and time date setup functionality that you need. It serves as a very valuable way if you want to get connected on your computer to check your IP address, make sure that the device is on and running correctly. So it's a nice first step in a site visit to make sure that you're connected, see what's going on, and then if you need to dive deeper or change settings, you may pull out your computer if you have to in order to access LiveView. And then, of course, we also have SolarConnect, which we're not going to talk a lot about today because we've had a whole webinar on it, but SolarConnect is the way to view your devices off-site or online or on the cloud. So as long as the device, the GenStar ReadyEdge, is connected to the internet and configured and set up for SolarConnect, then you can get remote system visibility, not just on your one site, but on all of your sites that are set up for SolarConnect from anywhere in the world. And the SolarConnect is really a fleet monitoring tool. So you can at a glance see what's happening with all of your sites and then dive into them if you need to. So let's look at our compatibility. How does and what does LiveView and the Morningstar mobile app work with? So the answer is GenStar and ReadyEdge, and then through ReadyEdge, everything else. So the GenStar has Bluetooth built in. You need to update to the newest firmware if you haven't already, and you will be able to access the application and LiveView and set up SolarConnect. No additional devices are needed. It's also worth mentioning that Modbus is served through the Ethernet IP port on the GenStar. So any data that you see in SolarConnect, there is a Modbus address for that you can get at it for other site monitoring, connecting to PLCs, SCADA systems, things like that. And the GenStar and the ReadyEdge also have SNMP enabled. So if you're online, that's another access to get your data off of your local site onto the broader internet. And if I didn't say it already, also Bluetooth. The GenStar has Bluetooth built in, and that's how you use it to connect your app. The GenStar is also compatible with our ReadyBlocks, which we've talked about in previous webinars, which allows an expansion of its own functionality. And again, you can see from the picture, everything is built into the box. No extra wiring, no extra devices, no accessories needed. And then LiveView and the Morningstar mobile app is also served through our ReadyEdge. You can see here in the bottom corner the ReadyEdge, and using a RJ11 cable through what we call meter bus, you can connect to our devices, and you are bringing the brains and the functionality that's in the GenStar to our other devices, such as the ProStar. I'll show you a full feature compatibility list next. The ReadyEdge also is compatible with the ReadyBlocks so that you can expand features and functionality. The ReadyEdge has Bluetooth built into it. We'll show you how to enable that, how to set up later. It also has Modbus. It also has SNMP. You'll see that these two slides are very similar with a different product, right? So the GenStar has all of this built in. The ReadyEdge is designed to bring that to our existing product line and to expand the functionality with extra inputs and outputs. And again, I suggest that you check out some of our previous webinars where we deep dive into the I/O and the functionality of the ReadyEdge specifically. So what do I mean when I say we can connect to products? In the last picture, I showed you the ProStar MPPT connected to the meter bus port. Well, the ReadyEdge can connect up to 16 of our devices simultaneously, 2 of them very easily through the meter bus port. So that's all of our products, including the SunSaver PWM controller, which does not have meter bus. So how would we control that? Well, we have 3 voltage sense inputs on the ReadyEdge. So you can monitor the PV input voltage, you can monitor your battery voltage, and you can monitor your load output voltage. So you basically wrap around. So you're not digitally looking at all of the data inside of our devices. Instead, you're using the inputs on the ReadyEdge. So the ReadyEdge brings this advanced functionality, online monitoring, and setup to all of our devices. So now let's switch. Let's talk first about the mobile app, and then we'll talk about LiveView. So we'll talk more about the features, and then we'll pull up a demo and we'll click through it so that you can see how things are going. Let me make sure that the demo is ready. Okay, so to get started with the mobile app, if you have an Android or an iOS, you can grab this QR code and download it directly, or you can search for it on your app store using Morningstar. The Morningstar mobile app, again, gives you local access via Bluetooth. You can view real-time data. You can set up your network, and you can enable your cloud access for SolarConnect. And you can also update your firmware for your ReadyEdge or for your GenStar through the mobile app as well. So connecting to your device for the first time on the GenStar, you do have to enable wireless. So you're going to, on your local display, on your meter or your display, you're going to go into Network Modbus Setup, and you're going to enable wireless. After you enable wireless, if you haven't done this yet, it is going to say that it needs to update the Bluetooth chip. So you need to be connected to the internet for that to happen, and it may take about 5 minutes. And after that point, if wireless is enabled, your Bluetooth will connect to your phone when you use the Morningstar mobile app. So you download the Morningstar mobile app as we just discussed, you open it up, and you're going to get a list of devices you can connect to, as we show here in step number 2. Today I have 4 different devices that we can look at. With the GenStar specifically, you're going to get a Bluetooth pairing request with a 6-digit number, and you're going to have to enable pair it on your phone, and then you're going to have to go back to the GenStar display and verify that that number is the same. And after that, you will be connected, and you will be able to view all of your data that's available on the GenStar through LiveView. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. So, and then connecting to the ReadyEdge is very similar, but a little bit different. The ReadyEdge has a Bluetooth enable button on it. So you push that button, the blue light comes on next to the Bluetooth, as you can see here in the picture, and you can push it again to turn it off. So it makes it very easy to enable or disable. You don't have to do anything in settings for the ReadyEdge. After that, the process is very similar. You open up your app, you refresh your devices, your ReadyEdge should show up if that blue light is on. You can click it, it connects automatically, and then you're brought into the main screen here, which, as you can see, is very similar to what we showed you before, but some differences because the GenStar is a charge controller and the ReadyEdge is a more fully featured IoT input-output device that also connects to charge controllers. And we'll look more at all of this very shortly. So once you get connected to the app, the first thing you're going to need to do is set up an installer password. If you haven't done it before, the app will walk you through that process. And if you need to change that, or if you need to log in to your administrator or installer access to get the extra features, then you first come to the top, you click on your device, and then at the top there's the 3 little bars that we expect on apps. And that will bring you into a screen where you can input your installer access password. After you do that, you'll see at the bottom of the app additional tabs become available. And so these show you advanced data and the setup and settings that you can't see without inputting that installer access password. And then after that, you can go into setup, for example, on the bottom tab, and then you have access to your admin functionality, which allows you to change that installer password, your date and time settings, and your network. And if you go into network, that's where a lot of the fun stuff is. You can look at your current settings, but you can also set up your Modbus addresses. You can set up TCP/IP if you don't want to use DHCP. You can also set up and enable your time servers, and you can set up and enable SolarConnect. So, for a lot of customers, you can get going on the GenStar without actually pulling up LiveView on your computer. You can get everything set up and good to go here. And then including charge settings, the GenStar has a local display where you can do everything that we talk about here as well. So now let's talk about LiveView before we get into demos to talk about how this works. Oh, you know what? No, I want to pull up the demo now and talk about MSView. Okay, so as I showed you, here we are with the app pulled up on the screen. And let's start with the ReadyEdge. We're connected here. We can click on it. It'll pull up the local ReadyEdge that we're attached to. All right, and reconnecting that screen worked right away. I apologize. It's always fun when you're doing a live presentation. Things don't always work exactly as you wish. So you can see now that we're logged onto the ReadyEdge. And in this case, I have already logged into my installer access password. And so let me show you what that looks like if I disable. So now you can see that the bottom tabs are not available, but we can still see basic system data. In this case, on this new ReadyEdge, we see the battery voltage of the power supply it's plugged into. We can see that we're in a closed loop configuration here with the Deca battery. We can look at some of our digital inputs and see the status of them, ready blocks, and any system errors or faults. So then I'm going to come back in. I'm going to put in my installer password here. I suggest something a bit more secure than that. So now we're back in administrator. And so now in addition to, okay, so now we see the connected products as well. In this case is a SunSaver. And we can go into our commands. So we can enable our generator if we're using AGS, automated generator start system, which we're going to go into detail in one of our upcoming webinars, some of the AGS and advanced functionalities, both in the GenStar and the ReadyEdge. Once we're into the commands, we also have the ability to reset our counters, reset the system itself, and look into any ready blocks that we have configured for command control. Now I'm going to go into settings. The settings is meant to show you the settings as they are set. In future updates, we will have the ability to change charge settings and other settings within both devices. So clicking through here, we have our operating modes, AGS, different battery profiles that we have chosen on our connected products, the date and time, ready blocks, AGS, timing controls, and our network settings. So it's a good way to view everything. And then we can go to setup, and then we're back to where we started that I showed you, because you might want to come in to set up your network your TCP specifically. And then also if you set up static IP, you get more options. And then also SolarConnect. You can come in here to enable SolarConnect. And then it will give you after you enable it, it'll give you a claim code. And then you can use this to connect this device to our SolarConnect network. In admin, like I showed you, this is where to set up your new password. You can put it in there, go ahead and save it. You can view it if you want to remember what you put it in. And then there's an update tab. So in this case, this device is ready to be updated to a new firmware that I'm not going to do today. But if you click this, it's a very simple process. Follow the instructions. I suggest that you keep this clicked for automatic reboot. Otherwise, you will need to unplug and replug in the device or power cycle it. So that's all of the settings basically on the ReadyEdge that are available. So let's go look at a GenStar now. So this, okay, look at that. Everything is working. I have an older firmware on here. Let me go to this GenStar. So here's the pairing request. I say pair here, and then I'm going to have to quickly run and grab the other, push the confirmation on the screen. And then here we see LiveView served from the Morningstar Mobile App. We get a lot of the, first off, we get a charge summary settings. We can see this is now a charge controller, right? So the basic screen is a lot different. We get to see the voltage, the power coming in and out of the system, in and out of the battery. And again, without logging in, we can zoom into the array to see what our PV array is doing. Same thing for charging, just power, into the battery. Ready blocks the setup, what's going on there, as well as any system faults or alarms or errors. And then I'm going to log in to show you the advanced functionality, which is very similar to what we expect that I just showed you. So again, now at the bottom here, we have these extra tabs, commands, again, for connecting or disconnecting load output. You can override a low voltage disconnect so that you can turn on your load for a few minutes to make changes or to get your load up and running again. That's a very useful feature when you're on site. And again, you can do this without pulling up LiveView on your computer. You can go into settings to see all the settings, very similar to what we showed you before. And same thing for setup. You can see this is virtually identical. You can change your admin password, your date and time, go into network settings to enable SolarConnect or to turn off DHCP and set up your networking settings. And then we have an additional SD card and logger tab. And you can choose if you want to use the SD card for storage of device data, which can make it handy to pull out and take with you or replace. Or a lot of times the internal memory is sufficient for at least a few years of data. So you don't need an SD card, but you can set it up here if you want. And then finally, update, very much just like the ReadyEdge. So the app is very consistent across our devices, and it makes it easy to log in and see at a glance what is happening in your system. And if you do need to make some advanced settings changes, then you might want to log into LiveView. So with that, let's log into LiveView. So to get to LiveView, we need to be connected. Our computer or computing device needs to be connected to the same local network as the GenStar ReadyEdge. And to access it, to access the GenStar, you can always use the device address, http //GSMPPT, and then insert the serial number, which is located on the side of the device on these stickers with the QR code. So that serial key 242700042 will be a direct link to LiveView that we'll show you in a minute. Or you can go into your network settings on the display and you can scroll down until you see the IP address. So this is the IP address that DHCP has served up, and I can insert this IP address directly into my browser to access LiveView as well. For ReadyEdge, it is basically the same. We also showed you how to find the IP address on the app, but on ReadyEdge, there is actually a link on this same sticker that gives you that address directly. So in this example, the address is just http re ReadyEdge 252.9.0.0.0.9. And again, that follows the same convention, except RE instead of GSMPPT, RE serial number, and you can get there. So let's look at LiveView here. So here is an example of the front screen on LiveView for the ReadyEdge, and we'll go into this in detail here, but we see that, we have basic system parameters and all of the inputs that are available, the digital inputs as well, any errors or faults, and then the ready blocks, and then the connected products. And that's the big difference between the ReadyEdge and the GenStars. ReadyEdge has all of the I/O available right at the front, and then you make an extra click into the connected product, into your charge controller to see the settings. Whereas with the GenStar, it is the charge controller. So the first thing you see is the battery flow, the power flow diagram that tells you the power coming into your system, the power going into your battery, and the power going into your load. And then everything else looks pretty similar. We have a ready blocks section, just like the ReadyEdge. And then we have detailed information about our array and about the state of the charge controller, which gives a lot of information that might not be that useful on day-to-day basis, but very useful for troubleshooting. Understanding, what the charge state and load state is great. The heat sink temperature, things like that, give you an idea right off the bat on how your system is operating. And then again, the errors. So I'm gonna pull up these devices for real. I'm gonna jump back to the ReadyEdge here, and we see a very similar screen, resized, so it's a bit easier for you to view from what I just showed you in that link. So first thing I'm going to do is unlock, and I'm going to put in my password, and we're going to get into all the features here. So we have the ReadyEdge, and then we have all of its I/O, and then we have the connected products, in this case, a SunSaver MPPT. And when I click on this tab, we can get more detailed information, the faults and the alarms of the connected product, the basic battery voltage, and the charge state. And then we can go and get more details by pushing down. We can also access this by coming down into connected products here and clicking on the SunSaver MPPT. And again, up to 16 devices can be connected, so this can become quite a full list. You might have a bunch of TriStars, some operating as MPPTs, some operating as load controllers, things like that. So, and then the ready blocks, which we'll go into some detail as well. And then we have all of our tabs across the front that will go into detail. History is as it sounds, historical data of some basic parameters graphed out. Typically, I actually jump right to daily records, where I like the table format that Morningstar uses. And we like to look at the maximum minimum battery voltages, starting with the earliest day and going backwards in time. This really gives you a good idea about the performance of the system and the battery specifically. Not to mention a pretty good idea about what the weather's been by looking at the amp hours into the system and amp hours out. So we can get a lot of information by disseminating this to understand what's been happening while we've been off-site. We also have alerts. Alerts for the digital inputs and some of the SoC and connected products like our blocks. We will go into more detail about how to use this information for advanced analysis and battery health monitoring in a later webinar. And then we have an event log. This is quite, there's a lot going on here in this event log, but if you ever do happen to need troubleshooting, it's something that will drive you to so that we can see what the system's been doing in a more in-depth way. And then the counters are something that I can't speak enough to how valuable this can be, because this will tell you how much power has gone in and out of your battery over its lifespan or since you've installed this product, which can give you some really good information as to its lifespan, its health, and its remaining capacity. And again, as we get through these webinars with our basic product functionality and features, we're going to then start moving towards what to do with these features and what to do with this data. That's, let's say, stage 2 in our webinar series. So moving along, we have settings at the top here. And again, so the settings is different than setup. Settings tells you what all the settings are at a glance. So it's quick and easy to get to. And there are also a lot of hyperlinks, so you can link to the area where you need to set these up if you're unlocked. Next is commands. Commands is where you can command the system to do things. So a lot of times that will be generator control. You can stop your generator. You can start it depending on your settings. Reboot the controller, the ReadyEdge in this case, and you can also reset your counters. So if you install a new battery, you might want to reset some of the counters so that you know that you're counting the power or the amp hours in and out of the battery starting from this time. And then we have setup, which opens a whole other bunch of tabs that we can go through here. Very similar to the app, we already talked about admin, where we can reset our admin password. And then we have our date and time, where we can set the time and set our time servers, which I do suggest you use time servers, especially it's a requirement if you want to use SolarConnect. Then we have our network settings, similar to what I've shown you before. Very similar, right? We can see how this is all the same here. And then SNMP. You can enable or disable V1, V2, or V3. So make sure if you need the security and you're going to use the users and the encrypted SNMP messaging to disable the other ones. Otherwise, you're not getting the benefit of the extra complexity and encryption. But if you don't need that, you can always enable V2 or V1. Then we can go to our connected products. So since we're now in setup and connected products, now when I click on the SunSaver MPPT, you can see that we can actually set some of the basic settings for charging. And we're going to come back to this in a little bit and talk about it more as an example. Now we have our digital inputs. Again, this is the ReadyEdge still, right? So we have the 6 digital inputs. We can name them. We can set alerts and things like that. You can check out the other webinar for detailed information. Our output on the ReadyEdge is assignable for AGS or to always be on for a small power supply, maybe for your 45 bus. And then now we get into more battery settings. Your battery size and its efficiency is important if you want to use SOC and you're using a Ready shunt in order to do that. And then you can select your profile if you have a BMS block with the lithium battery connected for open or closed loop configuration. There's limited functionality on the ReadyEdge for that for now, but still quite useful to get your basic lithium settings, basic lithium battery, SOC, and some other information onto LiveView so that you can monitor it. Schedules is a topic for another time. You might be using schedules with your AGS, or you might be using schedules for advanced load control. You can use one of the Ready relay blocks to do many different channels of load control so that they may turn on and turn off at different times or at different voltages, different SOCs and things like that. And then we have our Ready blocks where we set up our expansion blocks for the ReadyEdge. So in this case, I have a shunt and a relay. One of them is set for generator control. One of them is set to turn on a fan, maybe to run some ventilation through the box or some other purpose. And then we have a shunt set up, to monitor one of the loads. And sometimes we might use that shunt as a net shunt to monitor all the power in and out of the battery. And then we have our generator control, which again is a focus for upcoming webinar, where we're really going to dive into the features here of what all of this means and what it does. We can see a duplication of some of the scheduling section, so you don't have to click around. And then you can save everything and go from there. So this is our setup tab, and the last tab to go through at the ReadyEdge is the update tab. And again, this is very similar to the app. The big difference is that you're going to download the file from our website, the update file, and then you're going to choose this file by clicking choose file, select it on your computer, and then follow the process here. It's very self-explanatory, and it'll get you through that. So now let's jump over to the GenStar here. So we can see we're still locked down. We can see the slight differences in the front display, like we talked about, battery flow diagram specifically with our charge, battery, and load. And then we can unlock this. And by and large, everything on the GenStar is very similar once you get to use to LiveView on one of our products. The other one will be pretty self-explanatory, even the same in a lot of ways. So since this is a GenStar and a charge controller, instead of a connected product, we get all the information on the front display here. And the GenStar doesn't have all the same I/O that the ReadyEdge does, but it does have the Ready block. So we can see a duplication of that functionality here as well. The history is very much the same. The same function, same features. The daily records now here are a bit more tuned for charge controllers, things like absorption, float, and equalize. Since this is in closed loop lithium setup, that's why these are all 0, but this is a functioning system right here. This is all the same as we discussed before. Settings, also this looks very similar, exactly the same. Commands as well. There's a few different tabs that might be available, like your load output that's built into the GenStar. And then we have the setup, again, very similar, except for the addition of the SD card and logger, like I showed you in the app, as well as the meter display, which really just shows you you can change your temperature units, you can change your screen settings on the backlight and the display. So really handy and nice to set up. And then also you can save and load your settings on the GenStar to an SD card, which is not currently available on the ReadyEdge. So you guys, I want to hear if you have any questions about this. I know that that was a quick run through of the app and of LiveView, but again, there's more details in other webinars, and we're happy to answer questions if you want some clarification on what I just ran through here. So now let's look at a basic example here, which is, you have this system set up. Let's say first off, we're going to use a ReadyEdge, and then we're going to use a GenStar, and we need to get our system set for our new battery that we've set up. So let's first pull up the app again. Well, the app, okay, so the app, the ability to do charge settings is coming in the future. So we're actually going to jump back to LiveView, and we're going to show you those settings in more details. So go back to the ReadyEdge to start, setup, connected products, SunSaver, MPPT, and then here we go. So if you're familiar with our products, in the past, when you're setting up our products, you always set them as if they were 12 volts. And then you use a system multiplier to change your system voltage to 24 or 48 volts. Now with the ReadyEdge, it doesn't make you have to do that basic math. You can just set it as a 24 volt system if you like. You can see as it clicks through here that it automatically changes those as well. So let's just say we want to be a bit more conservative on this battery. We're going to change the default setting for absorption to 14.3. And this is actually a small battery. So I'm going to lower the absorption time to 30 minutes and keep the float at 13.5. We'll even make it 4.5, get it a little bit more fine-tuned there. Typically, we don't do a lot of equalization these days, but let's say we do want to. equalize every, yeah, let's equalize at a higher voltage, huh? Say 15. And we'll just do it for 30 minutes. In this case, when we push the equalize button, or we can just say automatically every 30 days. So it's really easy to set these up. Your friend here is going to be our battery data sheet. The data sheet should have this basic information. I really recommend going through a custom setup procedure. Our devices all have very carefully chosen default settings, but unless you're choosing a battery that we happen to model the default setting off of, then there's probably some settings you're going to want to change, especially things like the absorption time really changes depending on the amount of batteries or ampacity you have in your system. So it's worth it to spend a bit of time, get this set up right. It's going to help you to extend the life of your battery and to get better data as well. And temperature compensation as well. You'll see a newer firmware that this is defaults to 0.03, which is what we'd expect it to, 0.3 millivolts per degree Celsius. Anyways, we'll talk more about that later. Highly also recommended to use temperature compensation unless your system and battery is in an air-conditioned room with consistent with a consistent environment. The battery temperature compensation will automatically adjust all of these settings based on the temperature and the compensation coefficient you choose, which is another thing that we can talk more about if you'd like. But suffice to say, every battery data sheet has that that value that you can input, and you enable it, and then you want to use a temperature sensor. So all of our connected devices have the ability to use our RTS accessory, or they will default and they'll use the air temperature with an internal sensor that they have, any of our connected devices. And you save the settings, and it will reset the SunSaver MPPT. It'll throw an error, and some devices you may have to reset the connected device in order for it to boot back up with the new settings, but otherwise you're good to go. And now you've custom programmed your controller so that your settings are optimized for your battery, thereby extending its lifespan. So on the GenStar, this is very similar. From LiveView, we're still going to go to setup after we're unlocked into admin mode. And now we're going to start with there's three places we're actually going to look at. One is load settings, because we want to set an LVD profile to turn off the load when our battery is low. Now this is important for all batteries, but especially with lithiums. Lithiums will shut themselves down if the voltage gets too low, and then that means that you have to go reset the battery a lot of the time. And with lead acid batteries, if you don't use the low voltage disconnect, they will just keep discharging until you've destroyed the battery. So it's very important to use the proper low voltage disconnect. Use your load control. That's why we build it into these products. It's a necessary feature in my mind. And a lot of our competitors, you have to buy extra equipment in order to implement load control. And I think that that's bad practice. We also have high voltage disconnect and reconnect that you can set up. And this is useful to make sure to inhibit charging. If you have other charging sources in your system that may be overcharging, at least we'll shut down the solar charging to make sure that, and shut down the load. If you have some loads that are very sensitive to your voltage as well, because this is all the load settings. And there's another high voltage disconnect for charging as well. You have the standard settings based on our defaults, or you can go to custom and you can program this as you wish. Load compensation is worth talking about, and you can check on the question marks and get some detailed information here. So the load current compensation says if you have a large load pulling power from the battery, that'll cause the battery voltage to sag. And then if you turn off that load, the voltage will pop back up. And so in the manual, you can find some better information on how to find this load current compensation value based on your battery settings, but our default setting is pretty good here as well. You can also choose voltage or SOC if you have SOC enabled in your system. So on the GenStar, you can get SOC with a lithium battery and a BMS block, or you can use a ready shunt and a net shunt configuration. So, okay, well, I'm doing pretty good with timing here, I see. We want to leave 15 minutes for questions. So then we go into our charger settings, and we have our input mode. You're almost always going to leave it on MPPT. If you're using this in a lab for some reason, contact us and we'll tell you about these other settings. You have your battery info, which includes the size, which is very important for calculating the state of charge if you're using that function. Because once the battery is filled, it watches the amp hours out and back into the battery based on its battery size to calculate how full the battery is. For example, 200 amp hour battery, after you've pulled 100 amp hours from it, then it's 50% full. And then here we get into charge settings. We see a lot more settings available than what we were using, than what we saw in the ReadyEdge. The GenStar has a lot of advanced functionalities and features. But by and large, you don't necessarily need to go into these default advanced settings. We have our absorption voltage, our float voltage, and our timers. And again, equalization isn't used as often as it used to be, but if you know that you need it, it's easy to enable and set up. Maximum regulation voltage can be useful if you have sensitive loads or sensitive systems. And then the manual talks about these other advanced settings like absorption, extension, and the extension time, which adjust how the battery comes in or out of the absorption stage based on the weather or the load profile. So if you have a lot of load pulling power out of the battery, then you might need to extend that absorption time so that you charge the battery properly and fully. Or if you want to stay in absorption mode after you have a storm in the middle of the day, it'll pop back into absorption instead of moving back through the other stages. So we have the high voltage disconnect that I told you I'd mention, as well as the low voltage disconnect. And then we also have low temp fold back. This is very useful with lithium batteries so that you can limit the amount of power going into the battery when the temperature is very low. Lithium batteries allow some power to go in and out of them at low temperatures, but not a lot. So you can use low temp fold back to really tune this in. And this is very specific on your battery, on your application, and your site location. So this is something that you can always reach out to tech support if you want to talk more about it. And then finally, if you want to adjust what your LEDs do at different voltages, sometimes customers like to do this because they don't want to see the yellow light at all or the orange light. They just want it to be green until it's getting low, so that everybody sees that the system is good until it's not, and then there's no questions. But this is adjustable depending on your battery type as well. Lithium batteries have different settings than AGMs by and large. But again, the default settings are almost always enough. So you can go ahead and save this. It saves it. It'll reset the controller, and then you've custom programmed your batteries for your application. So then real quickly, I want to talk about what's coming. Oops, pulled up the wrong tab. So the big feature is within the Morningstar Mobile app. We will soon, with the next couple updates, start to implement the ability for you to change the charge settings in the app itself, which will be nice because you don't have to pull out LiveView in order to get that all implemented. So we'll keep everybody appraised of that, and there'll be some marketing blast as these big features come out. So that's a big one. And then LiveView, slowly but surely, you're going to continue to see user improvements, user interface improvements, improvements in the graphing, and even some of our upcoming products have some. I think it doesn't change the functionality of the product at all, but it's a prettier, nicer, maybe easier view with our product. So these are really meant, for installers and people to go in depth but we're starting to add more end user functionality so that you can log in and see the status at a glance. And I'm really excited to see some of that coming up as well.